Welcome to From the Shed End podcast. Feels good to be back. Episode 14, I believe we're on now.
17.
17? Wow, okay, where we're flying. So welcome back. This is From the Shed End podcast. Myself, T-Dot, and Theo. Like I said, it's been a while since we've really recorded. We got caught up in the moment of it's coming home, Euro 2020. The calmness has calmed down from the Champions League final. But how are you doing, Theo?
I'm good. I mean, you just mentioned it there. I'm still a bit disappointed after the Euros, the final. To lose on penalty is always a bit really tragic and disappointing. But kind of recovered now and really looking forward to tonight and also the start of the Premier League on this weekend. So excited for that.
Yeah, and big game tonight as well. So Villarreal, Super Cup. Well, give me initial thoughts. Obviously, it's going to be a big game. Belfast, Windsor Park, good stadium. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, obviously gutted not to be in Belfast tonight. Bit of a silly reason why I'm not there. I just had no one to go with. I didn't really feel like going on my own. And I was asking all my Chelsea mates, do you want to go? They were all away. But I think it's going to be a brilliant game. I think we're the favourites, obviously, and rightly so. We've played in about, I think, 4 Super Cup finals, and we've only won one of those 4 against Real Madrid in 1998. And the other 3 were defeats to Atletico Madrid in 2012. In 2012, we lost 4-1. Then we lost the penalties against Bayern Munich in 2013. And then we lost against Liverpool more recently in 2019 on penalties again. So this is the one I think we should be winning. You know, obviously it's the easier, exactly. We're going to break the cast there from Strip. I would hope so. You know, it's going to be, I think it's the one we have to win. I think pre-season, obviously, we haven't really had time to play some of our, some of those Euro semi-finalists and finalists. So I'm not sure about they're going to be match fit for tonight. But otherwise, we've had, a look at some great players in pre-season, the likes of Hakim Ziyech, Hudson-Odoi, who have really performed in my opinion. And I think they'll be they're going to shine tonight. And one thing I'll say about Villarreal is they were brilliant in the Europa League semi-finals and final, beating Arsenal and Man U, and we know those Premier League teams can be quite tricky to play against. But I know we should base it on pre-season, but their pre-season results, they've lost 3-2 to Valencia, they've drawn 2-2 with Lyon, they've drawn 0-0 with Levante, they've lost 2-1 to Marseille, they lost 3-2 to Leicester, and they drew 2-2 with Leeds. So no wins in those last 6 or 7 pre-season games. So I think we should be winning tonight easily.
Yeah, and I agree with you completely. I think those pre-season games do count. I think it shows you potentially where they are going into their season in La Liga. But for us, I think from the games, and I know you went to the Tottenham Hotspur game at the Mind charity game at Stamford Bridge last week, but it shows kind of where we are, I suppose, going into the Premier League and where Villarreal potentially are going into La Liga. But I agree with you, it'd be watching the preseason games, and we've seen obviously Trevor Chalobah as well, who's been playing really well in the games that he has played in. Again, Hudson-Odoi seems to have got a new lease of life as well. Maybe that break and coming into a new season fresh has helped him. Ruben Loftus-Cheek has impressed me as well a lot. So it'll be interesting to see out of the team, out of the players who will start tonight's game, because it'd be a shame for some of those who have shined during preseason to suddenly not be involved in a game which, okay, they didn't play a part in getting us to the Super Cup, but they've proven that to Tuchel that they are worthy of at least a start or being on the bench. So it'll be interesting to see. And like you said earlier, Strike Bear, I agree. We need to try and break that Super Cup curse. 1998 is a very, very long time. So I'm confident. I feel like going into this game with favourites for a reason. And I do think, not that it's going to favour us, because it's not. It's being kind of closer to home, I suppose. It's only in Belfast. I'm sure there's a lot, and I've seen on Twitter there's a lot of Chelsea fans that have gone over to provide that support as well. So I think it's going to be an interesting game. I'd like to see some of the Euro 2020 sort of semi-finalists, finalists get into that team. maybe just for a couple of, to get a bit match fitness, or just a couple of minutes as well, just to give them that opportunity to play some football before Crystal Palace on Saturday.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. I think I mentioned the two players that I thought had a great preseason in Ziyech and Hudson-Odoi, and you mentioned the other two, Loftus-Cheek and Trevor Chalobah. And I think I put a tweet up, and they were my 4 preseason winners, in my opinion, who probably really impressed Tuchel, and them not having taken part in an international tournament in June and the earlier stage of July would have really been beneficial to them to really show them what they can do to Tuchel. And I think we're going to play a similar lineup to we did in the first half of the Arsenal and the Tottenham games. I think a lot of those, Werner, Havertz, Ziyech, Hudson-Odoi, Pulisic, maybe as the wing backs. And I think, as you said, if we can kind of slowly maybe bring in the likes of Mount, Reece James, Jorginho, Azpilicueta, Christensen, those players into the team, Chilwell as well, then I think I'll be, give them, the minutes they need to hopefully maybe start on Saturday, which is another huge game. But yeah, I'm really excited to watch the game, and seeing all the fan footage of the fans in Belfast is only kind of like getting me even more excited.
Yeah, and I agree. I think it'd be interesting, seeing what lineup he goes with, and for that reason, because I think obviously with the imminent transfer of Romelu Lukaku coming as well, it'd be interesting to see if Thomas Tuchel has to tweak how we played under him last season as to how he's going to play going forward. What's your thoughts initially? I'll tell you mine afterwards. But what's your thoughts? If we do bring in a Lukaku, which is happening, we know that it's all been signed and agreed. It's just the formalities that need to be ticked off. But what's your thoughts around Thomas Tuchel potentially having to tweak the formation that we have played under him to maybe accommodate Lukaku a little bit more? Sometimes I feel like he needs that second striker, or someone to play off up front. So what's your thoughts?
I mean, when you look at since Tuchel took over, he never really trusted the likes of Abraham or Giroud, possibly even. So we're never playing with a natural number 9, and at times it was always, I want to say, what we saw from Werner at Chelsea. He is not a number 9. He always drifted on the wing, as we've spoken about before. So it would always be either Werner or Havertz as that number 9. And at times they do a very good job, but we'd always call out for that number 9 we needed, whether it was Haaland, whether it was Lukaku, Lewandowski. So now that we've got him, I think, he'll just naturally slot in there. And I don't know which player will drop out. Maybe Havertz and Werner will rotate, or Mount, Pulisic, Ziyech. We've got so many options now, wingers, attacking midfielders, even strikers, I suppose. Then we have to remember we've still got Abraham and Batshuayi as well. I don't know if they're going to play a part with the team next year. There's a lot of these kind of strong rumours now that Abraham's off to Roma. I think for less than the 40 million we were asking from West Ham or Leicester, potentially, because he's not joining a direct rival in the Premier League. But when you look at Lukaku at Man United, I think 2 years ago under Mourinho and Solskjaer, I think he's gone to Italy, and I think I put a tweet up in 2019 saying Conte is going to turn him into a world-class striker. And 2 years later, look where he is now, signing back for the champions of Europe for just under 100 million. So I think Conte is really, credit to him, because he's turned him into an amazing player, and he's going to come back now. And I think Tuchel is even a better manager for his development than anything. Maybe he did want Haaland as his first choice, didn't get him. But I think, seeing a lot of Chelsea fans complain about, getting Lukaku, but I think it's a brilliant piece of business. He's 27, I think, maybe 28. We're going to get at least 4 or 5 years out of him. And I think, I mentioned it so many times, he has unfinished business at Chelsea. Being a Chelsea fan growing up, idolizing Drogba, I think he'll come back to Chelsea with a point to prove. And that's why I almost feel like there's a delay in the announcement, because there's probably a big marketing video to be announced. That's maybe still in the works. But yeah, I think it's a great piece of business, and I think he'll naturally slot in. And I don't think Tuchel will have to tweak his formation too much. And I think he'll even persist with that 3 at the back with the wing backs. I don't think that will change either.
Yeah, I'd like to think so. I'd like to think that, Lukaku would just slot into how we play. And it'll be interesting, because like Strike Bear says as well, and like you mentioned, if we do lose Tammy, does it leave us kind of thin on the ground in terms of out and out strikers? If we sell Tammy to Roma or Arsenal, yes, Werner can potentially play there, slot in, but if we're talking about out and out strikers, your Tammy Abrahams, I suppose Mitsi Batshuayi, and obviously Lukaku who comes in. We sell Tammy. Does that leave us quite thin on the ground in terms of what potentially we may need going into a season where we've still got a lot of fixtures? We'll have the Club World Club Cup as well. Obviously, Champions League, FA Cup, League Cup, all these fixtures. We lose Lukaku for say 2 months. Are we kind of leaving ourselves open for potentially? Should we
Yeah.
think about keeping Tammy? Is what I'm asking, I suppose.
I mean, last season, I'm trying to think, we had Havertz, who we didn't really play as a number 9 until Tuchel arrives. And then under the Lampard, 6 months, we had Giroud, Abraham, and Werner, which worked and didn't work at times. And I'm thinking if we have just 3 strike players that can play as a 9 this season, then I think we'll be more than comfortable. And I'm seeing for now, I think realistically, I don't think Tammy's staying, especially after Tuchel's comments yesterday. I think it will be Havertz, Werner, Lukaku, and then Havertz and Werner will still get game time, even with Lukaku on the pitch, maybe as a number 10 or on the wing. And that's why I'm thinking, do we keep Batshuayi? Do we keep Batshuayi just as a backup? As you mentioned, we have the Club World Cup. It's the type of player that we maybe will want to play for, cup games or Champions League group stage games, to just so we can give a rest to the Lukaku or Werner or Kai Havertz. But yeah, there are a few questions to be asked, because every season, usually we go into it, we have 3 natural number 9s. Whereas this year, it's not, a week until not even a couple of days until Saturday and the Premier League starts. And it's still a bit, up in the air who our 3 strikers are, I suppose.
Yeah. And just talking about the other sort of deals that have sort of left the club. I mean, we do quite good business. Majority of the time, we've obviously had some of our stinkers where we've signed players for stupid amounts of money. It hasn't really worked. But just looking back to some of the players that we have, obviously Olivier Giroud's moved on. Victor Moses, I think, has moved on now as well. So we've done well in terms of recouping a lot of that money. Obviously, Mark Way's gone to Crystal Palace as well. Fikayo Tomore's gone to AC Milan. So we've got the good part, I think, out of that business by moving those players on, bringing in Lukaku for the 96 million, I think, or say 97 million. I still don't think we're done. Something tells me we're not done in the transfer window. You look at the likes of Barcelona, who are literally probably on their knees, waiting for clubs to come and take some of their players off their hands. I suppose Inter Milan are kind of in that same position as well, because there's obviously talk about Martinez going to Tottenham. Do we need to strengthen anywhere else? So obviously we've got the goalkeeper situation sorted. Hopefully now. We lost Caballero and I think Jamal Blackman have both been released. So have we got enough when we get Lukaku in to then start thinking about challenging for the Premier League this season?
I mean, when I looked at the squad last season, the only thing that was missing in my eyes was that number 9, which we've got now in Lukaku. And if we sell Abraham, for say 35, 40 million, we're basically paying, Inter Milan the 96 or 7 million that they're asking in players we've sold, because we've also sold Livramento to Southampton for 5 million, Lewis Bates to Leeds United for 1.5 million. And if you kind of put all those numbers together, you add in the Victor Moses fee, the Tomori fee, the Mark Guehi fee, then that almost, that comes to almost 100 million.
Yeah.
But in terms of whether we're finished with our transfer business, the other name that's always been mentioned is Koundé from Sevilla. And I think he's a brilliant player, but do we need a centre-back? I'm not sure. Zuma's been brilliant at times for us. And even when I was at the Bridge last Wednesday, he played really well. He played very, very well. He put in a great tackle, I think, to win the ball back from, I think it might have been Son. And especially when you consider that, Tuchel was quite stubborn with his back 3 of always being Rudiger, Silva, Christensen, and maybe Aspi at times. Yeah. But I don't know, it'd be a bit very, very harsh, I feel, if we were to sell Zuma or include him in the deal for Koundé, unless Tuchel's really planning for the future and he wants, to bring Koundé in for the, next 5-6 years, say. But yeah, I'm glad we got the goalkeeper situation sorted in Bettinelli, because I think that needed to be done. And if we don't really need to spend money realistically on a third choice keeper So to get him on a free was a great bit of business. But I want to say we're done, but at the same time, us being Chelsea being Chelsea, there's probably one last move on the final day of the transfer window. So I think that could be Koundé. And I think the reason those rumours have kind of quieted down a bit is because we're focusing on Lukaku now, which is a priority. But I would not be surprised should we announce Lukaku, say today or tomorrow, that the Koundé rumours and kind of resurface, say on Thursday, Friday, or by the weekend for sure.
Yeah, and ideally, I mean, you'd want to get both, Lukaku and Koundé, those deals done before the kicking off of the Premier League, just so that everyone's in the camp together, and you can kick on with your season. But yeah, I think Strike Bear says it there. So Koundé can imagine playing central defence, midfield. Loves to be higher up the pitch, so that's a good shout as well. I think that gives us another option as a defensive midfielder.
David
I think
Luiz-esque.
Yeah, exactly. And I think we will get him. I think we'll get him. I think, like you said, Lukaku's been the priority. Obviously, Haaland would have been amazing, but I think there was at some point I remember watching the Euros. I know Haaland wasn't there, but just watching the Euros, and it just suddenly something just clicked, and I thought we're not actually going to get Haaland. And I think I said that to you. I think I messaged you and said I think I've just resigned to the fact we're not going to get him. He's not budging this season. They've just sold Sancho to United as well, so. To sell two of their key assets in one season and not really have the option to replace them, it was never going to happen. So I think we've got the second best in Lukaku. Ideally, I would never have wanted to see Harry Kane, if I'm being honest. Yes, he can score goals. He's a brilliant goal scorer. But we have to be honest, he's 30 now, is he nearly? 28, 30?
Late 20s, maybe approaching 30, yeah.
He's approaching his 30s. He's got glass ankles, which we've all spoken about before. His injury record's really abysmal. I think we've got the best bit of business. I think we've done really well in this window, as much as we haven't really signed anyone. I don't think we needed to sign anyone, if I'm honest, in terms of going out and just spending free for all, as some clubs do. But I think we were set up really well last season, set up well enough to win the Champions League. So that kind of tells you something already. The number 9 was obviously the issue that we've spoken about on the podcast before. And obviously the goalkeeper situation had to be resolved, and maybe a centre-back. I think if we bring a centre-back in, someone has to go, and I think it will potentially be Zuma. I think obviously we've got Thiago Silva, who, again, we're probably going to get another season out of him. Maybe he'll be there the season after, just as a, for the experience around that young crop of defenders that we're potentially going to have. But I think it'd be a shame for Zuma, because I think after his injury, there was always that question mark whether he was actually going to get back to that level of where we knew he could get to, and he's kind of proven that. Obviously, he's been on loans to Stoke and Everton, I think, hasn't he, since then? But he's built himself back up to almost a defender that we kind of potentially expected him to be. I think it'd be a shame if he goes, but I can understand if he wants to play first team football, a World Cup coming up next year. Is he really going to play much football under Tuchel if we sign Koundé as well? So I think it makes sense if it's Zuma that does end up going. I understand the reasons as to why, but it would be a shame. But I said the same with Tomori. I thought Tomori had a part to play at Chelsea as well. But yeah, I think if we get Koundé, then he's brilliant. I've watched him a lot, so he's definitely, in a way, kind of a step up from Zuma in the nicest way possible. But I think that's one of our issues. I think we've got too many centre backs. I think even looking at Malang Sarr, who I think has gone back out on loan somewhere, and I'm not sure if he's still, or if is he due to go on loan? I think
he's not included in the Super Cup's travelling squad. So I think any player that's not been included in that squad is looking maybe to find a loan. But it wouldn't surprise me if he's maybe a Prem loan this time, because he was at Porto last season.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of centre backs. Ampadu as well. Trevor Chalobah as well. And then you mentioned Tomori being sold. We also sold Guehi, so it's almost like we had, we were overwhelmed with good centre backs as well, which is a shame. But as much as the Guehi moved, it pained me. Like the Tomori one, it kind of makes sense if realistically they're not going to be playing football and they're good enough to be starting for a Premier League team week in, week out.
Yeah.
Then let them leave and let them develop elsewhere, I suppose.
Yeah, I agree. I read yesterday that we've transfer listed some players at
Okay.
last. So I think Ross Barkley is one of them. Oh, I'm going to let you answer because that facial expression told me you wasn't sure.
I mean, he's. I think we've spoken a lot offline about Ross Barkley. I think on his day, he's amazing. He's absolutely
Yeah,
world class. I still remember that goal he scored against Liverpool in the FA Cup, and that's why he shows glimpses of that, and always in pre-season as well. He looks amazing, but we also said he doesn't look after himself properly in terms of his body. He likes to party. He enjoys the London nightlife and even the Liverpool nightlife. But it's just a shame because I feel like he's got such a high ceiling but hasn't reached that yet, and his potential is really there. And it'd be a shame. We kind of had a lot of faith in him, giving the number 8 kit as well. So it'd be a shame to see him leave. But I think it does make sense. And he didn't really could even start towards the end of the season at Aston Villa. What makes you think he can start at Chelsea with the talent we have now up front? So it'll be a shame to see him leave. But yeah, I'm putting that face because it's almost a face of disappointment. That he didn't really reach that level.
yeah, and I think I agree. It's a shame because I think he's, like you say, on his day, he's a brilliant player, but I just don't know. He doesn't do it. He's not consistent with it, and I think that is probably. And again, we're not at the training ground, so we don't get to see what Tuchel and the coaches are seeing every day. But I just think even at Everton, I think there was always going to be that underlying issue around Barkley, and brilliant player, but there's so much baggage that comes with that player that it just makes it difficult probably for the club. So I kind of, again, he's very similar to the defenders that we just spoke about. Is he really going to get much game time? Ideally, if he goes to a club that he's going to get game time again, could he push himself into the World Cup squad? He is a good player, so he could potentially do that. But he's got to have his head screwed on. He's got to focus on his football, and yeah, kind of reinvent himself at a club, because I feel like he's got to the point now where he is the loan man. He goes on loan and he does well there, does half a season, does well, gets into a bit of trouble and then gets injured and then tries to come back. And it's just, he doesn't want to become that player that is just loaned out everywhere. Very similar to Victor Moses. I know they're different players, but constantly being loaned out, you want to find a home and a club that you can play for, and try and build a bit of a legacy for yourself as well. But I agree with you. He's a good player, but yeah, I think his time at Chelsea's done. Very similar to Danny Drinkwater, who
Mm-hmm.
I know is probably one of our spoken players on this podcast, but I think his time's probably up as well. I think when I mentioned about the bad business that we sometimes do, I feel like that might be one of them, where we kind of missed the target on Danny Drinkwater.
Yeah, a bit of a late summer panic buy, maybe in Drinkwater. Just won the Premier League maybe 2 seasons before. We spent, I think, 36 or 38 million on him. Didn't really work out, and it's quite funny seeing him back in a Chelsea kit, like with Bakayoko at Stamford Bridge last week and in pre-season. It's like never in a million years I thought I'd be seeing these players back at the Bridge. But the one thing I will say about that position that Drinkwater plays, and so does Bakayoko, is sending Gilmore out on loan leaves us with Kante, Jorginho, and Kovacic. Should one or two of those players get injured, do we drop Mount in that CM role? Do we maybe play one of them, the centre backs potentially in that role? We spoke Strike Bear put about Koundé potentially playing a CDM, whether we can play maybe Zuma. I know he played the League Cup final in 2015 in that position as well, but if he stays at Chelsea, but it does put us short in midfield. I don't really think Drinkwater has a future at Chelsea, nor does Bakayoko, but that is an option. Bringing in maybe a similar to what I said about Batshuayi just for the cup games, but have that centre mid that can just play the game to give the other players a rest. So I think rightfully so, probably transfer listed, but what makes these players probably unsellable is their wages at Chelsea.
Yeah.
They're probably on such high wages that no other lower team Premier League club could afford to sign them on a permanent deal. That's why they're constantly getting loaned to Premier League teams. Drinkwater was in Turkey last season. That's realistically probably what they're doing now. And funny with Barkley, I was going to add about Barkley is I saw him. He was on his Instagram story. He was training at my he was in the gym at my tennis club nearby. And I was kind of thinking, can't he use the Cobham facilities to go to the gym? I was a bit confused by that, but he was there. So maybe he's just trying to get match fit, in his
Get
extra
fit.
time as well. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
and like I say, he's obviously a professional to an extent, but I do feel like you know that London lifestyle has definitely been passed down from when he was in Liverpool. And I know it's easy for me to say that as not being a footballer, but I just think sometimes you gotta get your head screwed on and just focus on the football. Which I think, if he did that, I'm sure he'd be one of the team. He'd be in our team. He's one of those kind of players that he is effective. So you can imagine if he was actually on the ball all the time, then he'd potentially be, in the starting 11. But one of the other names that I wanted to mention was Zappa Costa, who seems again like one of the players that is the forgotten men at Chelsea. And what's your thoughts on him? Because he played some of the preseason, didn't he? I think was
yeah,
it this?
he got
Yeah,
he got a
he
fair bit
came
of
on.
game time in
Yeah,
preseason, and I think what I like a bit more about Zappa Costa than Barkley and Drinkwater. He's a lot more quiet off the pitch in a way, and he did have a role in that Europa League campaign under Sarri. He was playing a couple of those Europa League games. I think he even featured later on in the final. Right, but right back, right wing back potentially. Are we happy to keep playing Aspi and Reece James in that position? And then more recently in pre-season, we've tested out Hudson-Odoi and
yeah.
Pulisic at times in that position. So another one I think potentially to play those cup games, but nothing more than that if we were to keep him. So I think it makes sense to put him on the transfer list.
It's a shame we never got Hakimi, because I think if had we got him, I think
Yeah, I don't really
yeah,
want to talk too much about rival teams now, but I did watch the PSG game last weekend, and he scored a cracker. He scored a cracker
yeah,
for them as a right
yeah.
wing back. So
But I'm impressed. I've been impressed because I think Hudson-Odoi played games. I'm going to say maybe the Leicester game last season at right wing back. There was a game
yeah,
which he came on, or he
Palace
came
away, I
on.
think as well.
I
He
think it was
played Palace
Palace, yeah.
away.
And so
Yeah.
he's proven that he can do it. He does it really well. It's an option. I think he'd be third choice, wouldn't he, if it was, we were down to the bones and we didn't have Reece James or Cesar Azpilicueta at that position. I think Hudson-Odoi can fill in there, so it's an option, a very good option to have as well.
We'll see him tonight. We'll see him tonight as right wing back because I think James and Aspi
Yeah,
won't start, meaning
no,
Hudson-Odoi will be the natural one to play the right wing back position.
yeah, yeah, I agree. I was going to ask you as well, because obviously for me, Conor Gallagher impressed me at West Brom last season,
Yeah.
and I was expecting, out of all the players I kind of expected Billy Gilmore to go on loan, if I'm honest, but I think Conor Gallagher was one that I thought potentially might stay. Maybe fight for a place, maybe play some of the cup games, or like you said, the group stages of the Champions League as well. But was you surprised to see Conor Gallagher move out on loan, or did you think that was potentially going to happen with the number of sort of players that we've kind of got there? Obviously, Loftus-Cheek as well.
I thought it kind of made sense for him to go out and learn. I thought Loftus-Cheek kind of wanting to cement himself back into the team, and Tuchel even praising him before when he was still at Fulham, comparing him to Michael Ballack, already
Yeah,
indicated that he rates this player. And even recently, it's almost like he's criticizing Loftus-Cheek, but also praising him, saying I want him to give 110%. He's not doing the best that he can. He's got such a high potential. So it almost seems like he wants him to get back on his feet and kind of refine that form that he had before that injury in that preseason friendly. So I think the Gallagher move to Crystal Palace makes sense. I think similarly to Ampadu, I was going to say, they both went to Sheffield and West Brom, who are teams fighting relegation. You could maybe say the same about
yeah,
Loftus-Cheek with Fulham, but I think going to Palace from West Brom is a step up. So he's done Swansea now. He did Charlton, Swansea, West Brom, and now he's at Crystal Palace, and that's a step up for me. Crystal Palace from those teams to Palace is a step up. So I think Vieira's kind of he got rid of a lot of kind of older players. They have we'll talk about Palace maybe before the game on Saturday, but they managed to kind of bring the average age of their squad down a lot this summer. I think they released Cahill, they released Scott Dan, if I'm not mistaken.
yeah,
Mamadou Sakho is no longer there. They bought in Guehi, they bought in Gallagher. They're going to, I think Eze is injured, but he's going to be the core kind of focus of that team with Zaha. But I think what they've done a brilliant bit of summer business, Crystal Palace, and I think Gallagher is a great signing for them. I'm just disappointed that it's not Lampard, the Palace manager, to get
Yeah,
the
yeah,
best out of
we
him.
did say
But
that, didn't we?
yeah,
We did say potentially Lampard.
yeah, but a good
Yeah.
move for him. Really good move for him. I'm happy.
Yeah, I agree. I think I would love to have seen, and I'm sure it's going to come. You know, he's such a talent, Conor Gallagher. So I think his time will come at Stamford Bridge, where he's just on that journey of making it to Stamford Bridge as a starting 11 kind of player. But he's got bags of potential. Same with Billy Gilmore. You know, I think they're both the future of Chelsea as well. And yeah, we'll have to see how they pan out. But is there anyone that has gone out on loan, or anyone, well, I suppose on loan, the ones that have been sold, but is there anyone that's gone on loan that you've sort of thought, oh, I wouldn't have done that, or it's not the right club that I would have sent them to? Because I think we've done really well this season. I do think there's the players that have gone out on loan. I suppose in hindsight, yes, they do make sense. But is there anyone that you think I would have probably not had them go there to that club?
I think all of our transfer business this summer has made sense. Just maybe the
Yeah.
Livramento move for me is a bit, he was our young player of the season last year. We didn't even loan him. We sold him to Southampton. I
Yeah.
think we put in a buyback clause, but it's the type of move where you're thinking, are we just trying to get as much money as we can from, academy players, or did he realistically say, I'm not going to break into this Chelsea team, I want to leave? It was a bit of a weird one, but if he wants game time, and if he does eventually come back to Chelsea, if we manage to buy him back somehow, then fair enough. And now that he'll get game time in the Premier League, maybe we'll see that maybe he's not to the level, or maybe he is to the level. So that was the one that kind of raised my eyebrows in a way, thinking maybe a loan would have been more sensible than a permanent move. But the Gilmore one, the Gallagher move, I think those are perfect loans for those players and the right clubs for them, I'd say.
Yeah, yeah, and like we mentioned before, and I know Strike Bears just mentioned it as well around the sales that we've had this year, and I know you mentioned it as well, Theo, that they basically total up the Lukaku fee as well. So we do good business. We're quite spot on when it comes to that, and I think as well, even our loan fees, we put quite, when we loan out players, we've got really good deals on loans. So I think even the loan fees sometimes they bring in generate a lot of money for us as well. But I just wanted to quickly, before we round off, talk about the Premier League as a whole. I know we're going to dive in each week to the games, but I just wanted to get your thoughts on how you think we'll fare across the season. What is realistically our objectives this season? Are we pushing for the league? Maybe not even just the Premier League, what is our expectations? Because obviously, City have spent 100 million on Grealish already, potentially 150 on Harry Kane as well. Manchester United, I think, have just spent under 100 million on Sancho. They're looking to get the Varane deal done as well. Liverpool, I think, have only brought the one, haven't they?
Konate, yeah.
Konate, I think they've only brought him in, so I'm sure they'll do a bit of business come the end of the transfer window's
They're
done.
getting Van Dijk and Gomez back as well, which will feel
basically
like
new players.
Yeah.
So,
my thoughts is last season, I think, without Lukaku, we're challenging for top four. This season with Lukaku, we're challenging for first place. And that's what makes the difference, I think, having that striker in Lukaku. So having him, I think we're challenging Man City for that first place. And realistically, I can't see any other team based on the current squads win the Premier League other than Chelsea or City. I think.
Yeah.
And even in a Champions League, I think Chelsea, City, and PSG are the three for me. The two Spanish giants in Barcelona and Real Madrid. They were weak last season, and they lost the La Liga crown to Atletico. But they feel like they've even gotten weaker this summer. Real have lost Ramos and Varane. I know they've signed Alaba, and then Barcelona have lost Messi. So in a Champions League, it's hard to look past City and Chelsea, and PSG. But Premier League, that's the focus of the question. Chelsea, City again. I think Man U have done some very good business, particularly Varane on the free. But I think some of those players, you look at Martial, you look at Rashford, they're very inconsistent, injury prone as well. I think Rashford's having surgery until maybe the October, November time. He won't be fit. I know they've got Fernandes, but they haven't really signed maybe that centre mid that they really needed potentially, which I think was the most important thing. I think like Maguire was very kind of underrated last season, so maybe a centre back maybe wasn't the primary focus, but they can find that perfect CB to partner with Maguire, then good for them. But I think there's nothing saying that we can't challenge City for the Premier League crown next season. And I think Tuchel, we have to remember last season he only got half a season. He came in January, only had 5 months. I think we had the third best defensive record in the league. Players like Werner contributed to 22 goals. They're only going to get better, I think, as well. We have to remember that Kai Havertz was only starting to show true glimpses of his true potential in the latter part of the season. So I think we'll see the best out of him as well. And he scored against Arsenal, a cracking goal as well in pre-season. Who will win between Chelsea and City is very tough. I think it's quite hard to say without watching a couple Prem games. But yeah, I think we can challenge for sure.
Yeah, I agree. I think it'll be interesting. I think we have to get off to a good start, and I think we will under Thomas Tuchel. We have to remember as well that we're going to lose Mendy in January, I think, for the African Cup of Nations, which is a big loss. He's no disrespect to Kepa, and I think that's maybe one of the reasons why we have brought in, Bentonelli as well, because I know you've watched him when he was at Fulham, so you know a lot about him. But I think we've got to get off to a good start. I think if we're playing catch up, October, November, and we go into that Christmas period, kind of needing, you only need to lose first place by 10 points or 13 points, and then it's a massive uphill struggle to bring that gap back down. So in a crucial time of the season, we're probably going to lose one of our best players in Mendy, who's a brilliant goalkeeper. It's going to be interesting. I do think if City do get Harry Kane, which it's looking very likely at the moment that they might do that, it is going to be tough. It's going to be very tough. I think it's going to be a 3-horse race. I think it's going to be City, Chelsea, and Liverpool. I think those are the 3 teams that will push for the league. It's going to be. I'm hoping it's close. I want it to be as close as possible until we can just branch off and win it in style. Give us a couple of games to celebrate and enjoy the remaining end of the season. But yeah, I think we've got everything now. I think we struggled last season. Jorginho, being our top goal scorer, told us everything that we needed in number 9. So bringing in Lukaku makes sense. We've got the goalkeeper situation sorted. Koundé, if he comes in, another option at centre back, or CDM as well. So I think we've got the whole package sorted, ready for the season. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that we're going to win the Premier League. I'm going to say it from now. I'm going to come back to episode 17. I'm going to come back in May, and I'm going to replay this. I'm going to put a clip of this in to the next episode at the end of next season, well, this season. And when we're winning the Premier League, we're going to be both hungover. We're going to be celebrating. We're going to win the Premier League. I'm going to go out there and say it. So in terms of the Champions League, it's anyone's game, and I think PSG should win it. Let's be honest, they should win it. They've got the best 3 forwards in the world at the moment, so I think they should potentially win it. That doesn't always mean that you win, and
we said the same about them last season. We said they were going to win it last season, and they didn't. So
but they have done. I mean, if you want to talk about who's done the best business in European domestic football, it has to be them. They've got a lot of their players on, I think, free transfers as well. Obviously, Donnarumma is a good goalkeeper. They've got Widgie from Liverpool. Obviously,
Ramos.
Messi's gone in there now. Ramos as well. So they've got, they've got the squad, haven't they, to win the Champions League. But it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to win the Champions League. So listen, no one had us down to win the Champions League last season at all. So anything's possible, and it all depends on your group as well. I think your journey to the final, it depends on how that goes as well.
Yeah, and I think we're in pot 1, which means we can potentially get PSG in our group. So which is tricky because they didn't win their domestic league. But yeah, as you said, anything can happen in a Champions League. It's 13 games to the final, whereas Premier League is 38 games, which is arguably harder. On the course of like a longer season. That's why we're going to need a bigger squad. I think bringing in players like Loftus-Cheek and maybe having Chalobah as well, who are in the travelling squad for tonight. I think that will make sense to have them. But yeah, I'm going to kind of just echo what you said and say we're going to win the league as well, so we can both be together. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree.
So
Yeah, so going back to tonight, obviously we've got the big game Villarreal. What's your predictions? What's your thoughts?
I think we'll win. I think it's about time we win that Super Cup. I mean, I was only 1 year old when we won it in 1998, so I'm not going to count that as a victory. But four is my lucky number, so this is the fourth time of asking, so we'll win. Um, I'm going to say 3-1 Chelsea. I think we'll concede one just based on preseason sloppiness and maybe a couple of rotations in the last 20, 30 minutes. But I think we'll win 3-1, 2-0 up at halftime, I'd say.
Yeah, I think it'd be. I think it'd be comfortable. I think we'll dominate the game. Looking back, like you mentioned at the start of the episode, around the number of games that Villarreal have failed to win during preseason, and watching our preseason games, the way that we're playing, it's almost like we have, to an extent, picked up from the back of last season. Obviously, we've had a lot of players missing from those games as well, and we've still managed to look convincingly decent during those games as well. So I think it'd be interesting. It'll be good to, like I said, good to see some of the, Mason Mount, Aspilicueta, Chilwell, Jorginho, those players that were involved in the Euro 2020s, getting back into the swing of things as well. There's not a lot of time. I'm sure they've been training every day, etc. But there's not a lot of competitive football that they've probably played since the Euros. So it'll be good to get them back on the pitch and see how they do. But I'm gonna go for 2-0. I'm gonna go for 2-0. Villarreal are not an easy team to
No,
play,
it's true.
and I think they're okay defensively as well. So, but I do agree with you. I think it will be quite a sloppy game, but there'll be, it's gonna be like a preseason game, isn't it? So
Yeah.
there'll be a lot of mistakes. There'll be fatigue. There'll be all that kind of stuff that you expect in a preseason game. But I do think we'll come out victory, 2-0, lifting the trophy, bringing it
I
back home
just
from
I just
Belfast.
hope this season we can just set the tempo from tonight and just almost kill
Yeah,
games off early, which we struggled to do at times last season with just 1-0 leads, 2-1 leads. So if we can get like a 2-0 lead at half time and then maybe score a third, early on in the second half, then that's what I'd want to be seeing, especially if we get in Lukaku, just be more clinical and kill games off. And as you said, Villarreal won't be easy, but we'll be lifting the trophy, I think, come tonight.
yeah, yeah. And then afterwards we announce Lukaku, that deal. I reckon we'll get. I think they'll. If we win, I think that it'll be announced tomorrow.
Yeah,
I really
I think
do.
so.
I know he's in Monaco, but I'm pretty sure everything's been done now. He's probably just
Yeah.
waiting around for it to be announced. But
He'll be at
yeah,
the bridge
looking
on
forward to it.
Saturday. He'll be at the bridge on
hundred
Saturday.
percent, hundred
Yeah.
percent, 100%. I hope so. Anyway, I think you're going, aren't you?
Yeah.
You got your ticket secured.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we'll be doing obviously the preview and the review of that game. Hopefully, 3 points on Saturday, 3 p.m. kickoff, I believe, isn't it? So that'll be an important game. But yeah, 2-0. I'm going for 3-1 from Theo. We'll be bringing that trophy home from Belfast, 100%. But for those who aren't listening live or not watching on YouTube, you can follow our Instagram and Twitter accounts. So the Twitter is at From the Shed End. That's all one word, at From the Shed End. Instagram is at From the Shed End, and it's underscore in between each of the words. You can also follow myself on Twitter at This Is T Dot. And Theo, do you want to just give the listeners your socials just so they can find you?
Yeah, you can follow me at Seski Time. So you'll know it's me for the Cesc Fabregas picture. Posting a lot of Chelsea content on there as well as match day footage. So make sure to give me a follow.
Right, thank you guys for listening. Strike Bear, you've been amazing as well. You've been a participant in this episode. Just before we close down, so apparently, yeah, Roma's general manager has flown into London to complete the Tammy move. So it seems like it's picking up a bit of pace there with Tammy Abraham. Something we might be able to cover on the next episode. So thank you all for listening. This has been From the Shed End podcast, episode 17. Join us again for more Chelsea content.